heard a word from Jiang at all? I see he's posting in the class still, but he hasn't picked up anything on our board or.
He must have thrown in the towel. I don't know.
Yeah, I don't know what he's doing. So, all right.
Yep.
We tried. All right. So, Keith, you want to talk through the changes you did, or Summer, do you want to go through the view stuff right now and what you're thinking as far as what views we want to try and build before next week?
Yeah, so right now we've just got homepage, create a list, and then the list page is blank. So I think the functionality that would be nice to have done on the front end is being able to go through and create a list, and then maybe on the main page adding a couple buttons, like one that would lead you to a place where you can edit your state.
Okay.
So that you can, select what state you're in, and it would adjust the sales tax accordingly. And theoretically, we could maybe then plug that into an API, but I'm not familiar with APIs, so I couldn't tell you how reasonable that would be.
Okay. And then, are we going to need a view for the registration that you put together?
I sort of have one right now. I don't know that it's really pretty or anything, but
that's all right.
I think I do. So I'm trying to get this to launch so I can actually show it to you guys.
Okay.
I did just find something that looks promising though for potentially fixing the little issue, because I think it's just because there was a different default activity before. Since I changed it for this, I think it's getting confused. So
got it.
Let's see here.
So our goals are to get the change or edit state to be working, the finish list process, and then the registration process that Keith is doing. If that's okay.
Sounds good.
Right. Just want to have those up there for Jacob to see.
Okay. Do we want to? I'm trying to think. I'll have to go look at the views and see what you've got. Any stretch goals like being able to delete lists or?
It would be good if we could implement a. That's one of the things I wanted to try to do for my personal code was to implement another Java collection.
Yeah, that would be good for sure.
Okay.
Well, I don't know what I'm doing here, so that's awesome.
You want to share your screen? Maybe we can help see it, or do you think?
Yeah, I just was looking at one thing though.
Okay.
Let me try. Yeah, I'll share my screen though for sure. Can you guys see that?
Mm-hmm.
Is it too small or is it okay?
I can read it.
Okay.
It's coming in.
Okay, what just happened here? Well, I guess it just says null pointer exception. I wonder where. Well, that's not very helpful. Okay. Well, I guess we'll try one more time. Yeah, it's just showing the build finish, but it's not actually running. Well, I'll walk you through the changes. There are many, so hopefully that's okay.
Yeah.
First of all, on the server side of things, created this folder called Android Login API.
And this is in our current team app, right? Have you pushed all these? You probably haven't pushed these yet.
Well, no, I haven't. But these ones won't be in there because these are server side.
Okay.
These files. I can maybe tack them, stick them in there just so people can see them. But once again, some of these have keys that I don't want to expose and stuff like that. But inside this, so I'm not going to open the config.php for that reason because I don't really want to broadcast on YouTube all of my database keys and things like that. But just trust me, they're in there. It just has the URL and the basically the database connection parameters, the username, password, stuff like that. But let's see here. Open this file up. Okay, so here is the first file. Okay, it's called dbconnect.php. I don't know if you can really read that. There's a way to zoom in. Anyway, There we go.
Yeah.
Okay.
Perfect.
So basically, this is just to create the connection. So this file gets called, and it just takes the config.php, and then it takes the values, the host, the user, password, and the database, and creates a connection, and then returns it. Okay. Sounds pretty simple. Then this functions one, just basically it takes that connection that was, it does the db connect here. So it creates a connection, and then it allows it to close the connection later. So here's our different functions that actually make this work. So we have the ability to store a user. So like if you're creating a new user, it's going to take the parameters of name, email, and password. And then this is just a built-in PHP function right here, this unique ID thing. So true just makes it create a longer, more unique one. And this is like if you wanted some sort of prefix on the unique number it comes up with, and I didn't, so I left that blank. So then it stores it here. And then basically now we're going to take the password and we're going to hash it. This is a function down here, hash SSHA. So this is taking the password. We're going to create a salt using SHA-1. It's going to do a random number for and then it'll create a SHA-1, just hashed key basically. And then we're going to substring it because we don't need a ginormous salt. We need just 10 characters. So this is just taking 10 characters out of that random number essentially, or not random number. It's random characters. And then we're going to encrypt it. So this is once again just built-in PHP functions. Mm-hmm. So base 64 encode with SHA-1 for our algorithm. We're going to give it the password and the salts, and we're going to end up with an encrypted password. And then we just, since we can't return two values at the same time from a function, we're creating an array here that just takes the salt and the encrypted password. And then we're storing them with a value. So instead of doing like 0 and 1, it has salt and encrypted for when you want to get these values. Then it returns that hash. Okay. So back up here, now it has encrypted password is going to be the hash with encrypted. So it's telling it to find the encrypted from the array. And then this one's taking the salt from the array and setting it to these two values. Okay. So the encrypted password and the salt. Mm-hmm. And then I'll try to go a little bit faster on this part because it gets kind of long. But anyway, basically we insert these values into the database. We have a unique ID for the user, their name, email, encrypted password, the salt, and then the time it was created at. So it says now right there. The question marks mean that we're going to use parameters. So right here we have the parameters that we're using. So we're just inserting all these values, and we're making that a statement, and then we execute the statement and close the connection. Okay. Well, not the connection, but close that statement. And then we're just going to check and see if it worked by selecting from users where the email is equal to the email address that they put in. And if it does find something, then it's going to return the user basically and just say so we know that it worked. And if it didn't work, it'll return a false. Okay, so that's the registration system essentially. And then sorry, did you guys have any questions about that so far?
No, it's good.
Okay. Now, if the user...
I mean, I would if you weren't explaining it, but...
Yeah. Right? For real. Then the other thing we want to be able to do is see if a user exists and log in type of thing. So this is where we would be able to log in. So get user by email and password. So we're taking their email and the password, and then we're selecting from the users where the email address is equal to this parameter, the email. And basically this part's just taking, executing this statement and then putting the values that are returned into user, that field. And then we're just going to take the user's salt, because the user is actually an array. It returns an array of all of the results from this, like every column that makes up this row of data, or the rows of data, I guess. So in this case, So we're saying take the salt, we're going to set the salt, take the encrypted password and set it as encrypted password. And then I have another function down here. This one's a little bit simpler. It doesn't involve the salt, creating the salt, but it does basically encrypts the password that's input to it again. So we're encrypting the password this person has entered to try to log in, okay, with the same salt. And so the result should be the same, the encrypted password. So we're not ever unencrypting it, we're just encrypting the user's password you're trying to log into, and then we just compare the encrypted password with the hash that we already have in our database, okay? So basically, if they're the same, then that means their password was correct, and we once again return user. So that's acknowledging that it was correct. If not, we return a null. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
And then just this one right here, like let's say they did like a, forgot password or something like that, and we want to be able to just check and see if their email address is even in our database. That's all this one does. It's pretty simple. It's just kind of taking the piece of this and getting rid of the password check functionality. So we're just taking it and we're just seeing if the number of rows that were returned is more than 0. If it is, we return a true. If it's not, we return a false. Okay. So that's the functions that are involved here. Then we go up one level. So if they want to log in, this is basically just front end stuff. So the stuff in the include folder is we don't necessarily want people calling that directly. So this is our API right here. So the login is an API and register is an API. So basically here we're using a post for the API. There's different ways you can do transactions between servers. Post is one of them.
Right.
So they can do a post, and they're going to give us the email and the password for login, of course. And then we just do the get user by email password that we have in the functions, right?
Right.
And if the user is not false, so the returned user, then we're going to, the response will have the error that there's false. We'll have the user unique ID, the name, email, created at, and updated at. So all of these will be returned in a JSON. Okay. If the user is not found, it's going to say that there was an error, and then it's going to give this error message, and that's going to be returned in the JSON. And then if for some reason we didn't get the email and password, we're just going to say that the required parameters weren't given to us. Okay, so that's our API. The register API, real fast here. Is a little similar.
Server
Just
side,
us.
right?
What was that?
These are still server side, right?
Yeah, these are still server side. So this is just the API that our Android app will use. So once again here, this one's pretty similar, just has a little bit more to it. So we're taking a name, email, and password to register. We're going to check if the user existed, that other function. So that way, if they're trying to create something, they already have the email, we say, sorry, the user already exists with that email. If not, then we're going to create a user using the store user functionality, and we'll respond with these things again: false, their ID, name, email, and created time and updated time. And then if for some reason it doesn't work, we just return an error message. If they didn't give us enough parameters, we return this error message. So that's the server side of stuff. Does that all kind of make sense so far?
Yeah.
Okay. That's good work.
It's really helpful, actually, because I was a little lost on APIs before.
Yeah, so this is how APIs really work, is you're creating an interface where you accept certain parameters and return other stuff, usually in the form of a JSON. Sometimes XML or something, but JSON's kind of the most common, I think. Okay, so now going back to the Android app, this is messy, so try to make it quick. So basically, we have an app config that I added, and that just stores the URLs for our login API. Oh, oops, that says login too. Register. So right here, we're just storing this as a string, URL login and URL register. Pretty simple. And that's pretty standard. This is how you usually get an API. You'll get some sort of file that you're calling essentially, and then you use that elsewhere in the app. App controller. This is just helping create stuff in the app, so there's not a whole lot of actual functionality here. But once we get into like login activity, this is one of our activities that is a screen, and there's a view for it as well. It's very simple. It just has a login button and their email and password. That's it. So right here, basically all we're doing, a lot of this is just kind of Android specific stuff I just kind of found. But basically, a lot of this is just from the view that I created. But it takes the email input and the password input, and then when they click the button that says login, that does that. If they click like to register, it'll take them to the other view. That's the register. Okay. And then we're using our SQLite handler, which is here. This is just here we're showing the database name, the user ID, all that stuff. Okay, so this is just more of our database connection stuff. Anyway, a lot of this is kind of common code out there. I didn't write all of this, of course, but basically here we have like get user details. Anyway,
Right.
so a lot of this is just standard SQLite handlers, kind of
It's
already
familiar.
out there. So anyway, but we're using some of that. Okay, so back to login activity. When we check the login, we're taking their email and their password, and then we're telling that we're going to do a post type of API call essentially, and then we're going to send the response to a listener. So basically, we're taking these pieces of information and we're creating the call to the API. Here we're using URL login, which has already been set, right? And then here we're saying we're taking the response, okay? And this is a JSON object, so we're taking the response, putting it in a JSON object, and then we can parse out the pieces of information from the JSON. So like the user, to get JSON object user, remember everything was contained in the user. And then once we have the user, we can get the name, get the email, get the date it was created, set these all the different things, and then we can use them wherever we want. Stuff like that. So, and then we're just, here we have like a login error messages and things like that. So if we get the error message, it's going to do that. And then it's going to display it to the view, basically showing the error message. And then another error if for some reason the JSON throws an exception.
Mm-hmm.
So that's pretty straightforward there as far as that part of the code. And then register is very similar. We're just saying like when they click register and then they submit the name, email, password, very similar thing. We're going to do the URL for register. We're going to use the post method again. And then we'll be getting a JSON back that we process. And I don't know if this works at all right because they haven't gotten to test it yet.
Yeah.
So, but in theory, the framework is there and it should work. It's kind of complicated though, because a lot of this is over my head, but I tried my best to follow the examples I could find. So the server side makes a lot more sense to me than the app side actually.
Oh yeah.
But anyway, questions?
No, you did a great job explaining it.
Okay. Sorry I can't show it to you guys. I tried to
It's
get
all
it
right.
to work,
That's good. Once you commit it, we can kind of poke around with it.
but this is like the view.
Right.
So
Good.
they're supposed to be able to just put in their email and password and click login. And if they're not a member, it takes them to the registration page. Which
Perfect.
I know the colors don't match or anything. I just did this really fast. So
Yeah.
How dare you.
yeah. So there's the register page, and then this is supposed to be. I don't know. That's just partially finished, but it's supposed to start on the login page. That's
right.
what's supposed to pop up. So yeah. It's not really very integrated with the other stuff we have yet, though. So But it's there.
Yeah, I'm like, well, it doesn't look like. I mean, we could just move the other buttons we have set up to that page. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
So I don't think it'd be
Or
that
just
hard.
after they log in, it takes them to the next page. Because I would think this would be the. If you can't log in, you can't really do anything in the app anyway. So.
Exactly. Yeah. No, that should be.
So obviously, there's not really any graphical elements right now. It's just very, very, very bare bones. But anyway,
Well,
but that's what
and
it's
that's kind
supposed to
of
look
how.
like.
Yeah.
What were you saying?
I was just gonna say that's how a lot of apps are these days anyway. They're pretty clean.
Yeah, that's true. Okay, but yeah, that's what I know. It's been a couple of weeks since I started the login thing, but it's I worked on it quite some last week
Yeah,
and
it's
some
definitely a
this
lot.
week. So
Looks like a lot of work into that. Good job.
yeah, so
That's nice.
but yeah, I don't know if I'm processing my JSON and everything right yet because I can't test it yet, but I hope it works. So
Well, it looks good. I mean,
but
whatever else, at least it looks like good code.
yeah, so
There wasn't any glaring logic problems.
yeah, some of it's messy and not very readable and stuff, so I need to try to fix that. But anyway, but there's what I have so far.
Cool. All right. Trying to think what else we need to cover this week then. What else can you guys think of you want to cover or go over? Anybody struggling with certain things they want to talk about as a team? As far as code snippets?
I gotta find a way to start.
Yeah.
My technology's working. That's why I'm hoping to do a couple of team app this week. We'll see.
Right. Okay.
But I think I always have some direction on all of them. Is there anything you need?
No, I just got to get a bunch of my individual snippets done. I'm just updating our meeting minutes too right now while we're on
Oh,
here.
thank you for doing that. It completely.
No worries. What does he want us to do with those? Do we end up turning these in for anything, or I didn't see?
Evidence of professional interaction, maybe?
Is it? Okay, maybe.
I mean, that's totally just a guess.
Sure. All right, I'll get that.
Do we want to stop the recordings, or do we have other stuff we want to cover?
I think we can stop it. That's good. So let's go ahead and
Yeah,
stop
like,
that for
I
now.
think at this point it's just administrative.
Yep.